Sequoia National Park in California, one of the national parks throughout the United States. It's kind of fitting. This will be the last episode of this season. And of course, you know, we're going to be going over other stuff as well. But I think this is going to be really good to be closing this out where we are. Ladies, I'm recording here. Whoa, that was okay. Listen, real quick, just to let you know, I'm actually recording. I have a YouTube and we're recording here.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that that's what...
This is Baby Sherman. This is Baby Sherman.
Well, I'm looking at all the
It's right here.
I'm looking over here, which is look at what visual. That's paper. This is real.
Put the paper away.
Yeah, put the paper away. Let's really look at what's going on here. Look at who's Baby Sherman?
Baby Sherman.
Baby Sherman. Oh,
Look at that. Look at that.
Baby.
Well, as you can see, my mom and sister got involved too, but
We're sorry, but this is at all. We're at awe.
we'll be talking about the next episode, which will be a color theory. But let's talk about and do an overview of what we've done. I'm going to follow them. I'll be back.
To the trees! To the trees!
Trees. I'm a tree.
Forget it. It's over.
And my season is over. My season is over!
Does that mean it's done?
Say it isn't so.
I guess this is goodbye.
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 This is goodbye.
Well, hello again. Falling apart at the seams. Welcome to another episode of Artifacts. Behold, AJ7, we work together. Are you taking notes? Well, here we are. Full circle. Back to square one. Can't believe the first season is over. Well, a lot of traveling, a lot of hard work on both our parts. And you know, when I said earlier, there are other tutorials, there are other, many other artists on YouTube that you can also follow. And I encourage you, I really do. I like to think mine's a little different. I don't follow the beaten path everybody else does. And maybe there was some things I kind of strayed off on, and other things that I've done that may not have necessarily been there, but in a way that's what art's all about. It encompasses everything. It encompasses life, it encompasses history, it encompasses all of that. And you're going to see all of that we're going to work on. Things that we're going to be able to do. So there's a lot to be said about where we were. Remember? You remember? This is where we started, right at this table. Posture. I'm sure you remember that if we go back to it. Okay, so this is a kind of a overview or review over everything that we've done and where we've been and everything that we go over during this season. And this is where we say goodbye. This is where we end this season. Kind of sad, but at the same time, it's also a chance for you, if you followed this, if you're one of our 115 subscribers, you've followed everything and you have a lot to work with. You started all the way from basic posture to learning about the tools right here, to understanding composition, design. Now, does this mean you know everything? Of course not. It doesn't. There's so much more. And what I've done is pretty much gone over a overview of what you've done. What you have to do now is you have to practice and work on it. Review and go back over this season and take a look at some of those episodes that we went over. I really encourage you to do that because that's what it's going to take. You forget something, go back to it and see what you have. Okay, so let's kind of look over some of the things that we did during this period. Here are some questions I'm going to ask you and see if you can answer these questions. For instance, posture. Okay, let's take that. Do you want to have your A, back straight, B, slouched, or E to the side? E, try C. Oh boy. And that's, your back's going to be straight, obviously. You want to look directly at that picture plane. It's just like what we went over before. Your pencils, for instance, now, there's true or false. Is there just one pencil to work with? Obviously, that's false. You got several different pencils. You have your H series, you have your B series, and your B series are softer than your H series. Do we call it a smudge stick? No, it's called a blending stick. Those are the things that you want to remember. What are the types of erasers? You have a kneaded, a gum, and you have a magic eraser and a pink pearl. Remember your papers. What type of papers do you have? Well, you have your newsprint, you have your Bristol paper, Bristol board, you have your drawing, you have your sketch paper, and in some cases you also have your illustration board, which is relatively rare. The one thing we didn't go over is digital drawing with your iPad, and we'll probably save that for another episode later on down the road. But again, these principles we're using are all the basic ones that we use this season. And then of course we got into composition. You know, you got the three shapes, which is the cube, the circle, or the sphere, and the cone or the triangle. And you can make anything out of those. Remember the composition of those, how you want to go with different sizes and different depths and overlap, but not keep them right on the edge to create that tension in the eye. Also, you don't want to have your image or the subject matter sitting right on the edge of the picture plane. That creates tension. And like I described what tension was like, it's kind of like that little piece of thread or that little tiny splinter that's just barely touching your skin. It's irritating. Well, that's what it's like to the vision of that, to see that. It's irritating. It's called tension. And you want to stay away from that. Either overlap it or keep it away, but don't put them right next to each other. You don't want to draw the viewer outside the picture plane. You want to keep the people, or you keep your viewer inside the picture plane through good composition. From there, we went on to, what was the next step? Perspective, foreshortening. And we discussed a little bit about that, how to create that foreshortening and how to create things to look and create things more dynamic. Remember, when you're going to draw something, you want to be able to have something that has a little more dynamic to it. Remember this. Here we go. We'll use R2 here. This here is pretty much static, but if we turn him to a 45-degree angle, he tends to be a little more dynamic, a little more exciting. And that's what you want to look at. Never ever do something that's just either completely on its side or directly facing you, unless you're going to be working on a logo. But that's going to be coming on later in probably another season about design and composition and coloring design. That'll be another, probably a few episodes, maybe not necessarily a whole season, but we will be discussing about that. Okay. What other stuff is there that we went over? Well, we also went over the human anatomy. We talked about the legs. We talked about the bone structure. We talked about the skeleton, the skull, different positions of those. Now, a lot of the information I gave you, true, is probably more information than you need. But the thing that you have to do is you have to practice and get used to using all of these images and being able to understand what you're drawing, the muscle structures and how they're working. We also delved into a little bit about art history. I know that wasn't part of the subject, but we kind of dabbled into that a little bit about how art influences, how art tells a story about where we've been, and that's exactly what art does. It tells where our humanity has been, who we are, and possibly where we're going. And that's what art is all about. It encompasses everything. It's in mathematics. Remember the Fibonacci sequence and the Fibonacci circle. There's a lot of these talked about the golden ratio in composition, what we were working with. Another thing you also want to remember is practicing. Remember that even if you are a gifted illustrator, a gifted artist, and you know, hey, I don't need any of this stuff. Okay, great, you may not. But I can tell you this one thing. Remember this. If you're coming in with a haughty attitude, or you're coming in with a pompous and arrogant attitude that I can draw anything, you're going to get sucked under. Because remember, you may not see them where you are, but there are artists, illustrators, if that's what you're getting into. You want to get into advertising, you want to get into murals or car design, or you want to get into that area, or there are other artists that are working. Remember the story I told you about Rhonda Greenleaf and how I thought I was way better than her, but because she was diligent and working hard, she surpassed me. And she even ended up doing signs for the 1984 Olympic Games, which were in Los Angeles. And of course, they're going back to LA in 2028, 4 years from now. Will I be working on those signs? Most likely not. That's way past what I've done. Anyhow, but again, I don't know, maybe there might be something coming along, but you've got to practice. You got to keep diligently working, and I don't care how good you are. I don't care how phenomenal you are. You're going to get passed up. Because remember, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other artists around the world, illustrators, that type of style, you're going to get blown away. And so you definitely want to be able to keep a good head on your shoulders and keep yourself humble, but keep yourself practicing, because there's new techniques coming in all the time. You're going to have to remember that. Seriously, you will. Another thing you're going to have to understand about working in the arts, and really everything that I've talked about in this first season about composition, design, drawing, pencils, probably in about another 10 years or so, this is going to be rather archaic if it's not archaic now. Meaning that this is probably the tail end of the arts that we're starting to see fade out, which is kind of sad, because there is a lost art in working with pencil, charcoal, Conte crayon, and working on illustration board or working on paper, design from the hand. This here. This is the iPad. And you've probably heard a lot about it. You've heard a lot of different apps that are applied to that in animation, in recording, and also in drawing. Fresco, for instance, is one that I use. What would be the drawbacks of working in that? Well, actually, there's a lot of pluses. For instance, you can do overlays, and you can airbrush on that without having to use masking and use different layers and then compress them later. Of course, you have to be careful between raster and vector and making sure that you're using a vector, because it becomes a lot more clearer than using raster. I know that's probably something we're not even discussing, and for those of you young kids are kind of, what? We'll get into that later. But this is something that's used today, as opposed to lugging around your papers and your pencils and everything else and going from one class to another. But being able to draw on paper and being able to do these things is also an art that people are going to want. For instance, you could do your art on this and you could sell it. The one drawback would be, and you're going to hear this a lot, how do I know it's the original work? In other words, it's on a computer, it's pixels, it's numbers, it's all of these things, but it's never the work of on paper, the pencil, the hand of the artist. It's not the original. It's not the original. How do you know the differences between the two? And that's going to be the drawback of that. this painting over my shoulder here was done by my father. And the one over here was done by my father. And the thing that you have is I have something that he actually painted. It was something that he has. If this was digitally done, anybody could have done it. The only difference is that he had signed it. And that goes with a lot of digital art today. But being able to understand digital art and work that is an art all in itself. And we're, like I said, seeing this start to take the place of other arts. But there's also going to be a need for that. And we'll get into painting in another season. But our next episode, as I said, or our next season is going to be about color theory. How to mix color, how to get all these colors together, and how to work them and understand them. And that's what we're working on next. You're also going to see some new characters being introduced into next season.
Oh, man. You're going to be seeing more of me. More of me? It makes no difference, man. It's just what you're feeling. You know what I mean? But you're going to see more of me next season. This season's come almost to an end. You know what? I got a jam. Talk to you later. What just happened? Came in for a haircut? Whoa, that was weird. Okay, well, get back to our next episode of Artifacts. I have to figure out what just happened. What's up with this? Oh man, rules! Ugh. Can't be motivated by rules. You gotta be like, free. Just free yourself. Revolutionize yourself. Oh man, that's what art's all about. That's what we're gonna talk about in Artifacts. I'm coming to show you about the emotional side. Yeah, emotional side. You gotta dig that, man. Dig it. It's so cool.
The other thing that I also recommended was this book here. Remember? This is going to be good for those of you who are out there working on the human anatomy. Get this book. I'm going to hold this up for you, okay? There you go. You can find it on Amazon. And I'm telling you, if you follow this book, it is like the Bible to art in drawing the human anatomy. It's just really phenomenal. You're going to be able to find just about everything you need that's going to help you draw these figures and help you draw the figures even better. A lot of figures you're going to be seeing that you're going to be illustrating will be on the iPad. Here's another thing. The iPad now is going to be something that's fading out because now you have AI coming in. And that's a whole different animal altogether. Does that mean that the artists are going to be fading out? Not necessarily. In other words, AI, you can tell AI what to draw, but it can't get in here and express what you're thinking, your imagination, what you're doing. And a case in point is the rollerbots that you've been seeing my characters. I could tell AI to draw my rollerbots, but AI has no idea what my rollerbots are like. And it's the same thing with a character you may develop. It won't know anything about those characters or what exactly they are. All right, so I hate goodbyes. I hate saying the end, and I hate doing whatever. It always seems that, there's something great coming to the end. You've achieved a lot, but then it's like we're fading out. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to be gone for 2 months. And in those 2 months, we're going to start getting ready we're filming. We're getting ready for our next season, and we're getting set up for that. So we'll be doing periodically, we'll be doing different types of videos. We'll do reaction videos. We'll be doing stuff on murals, different types of art periodically, and you'll see those. But for the next maybe even 3 months, we'll be back in November, and we'll be getting ready to start off our new season for Color Theory. But if you liked and you subscribed, you will get an announcement showing that we're coming up with our new series, and you'll be able to stay up with those. We're not quite done yet. We're going to go over a few other things first, and then we'll wrap up this episode. come on, let's talk about a few more other things that we need to talk about. Probably wondering what I'm holding here. Well, this is probably a real valuable book. It's the book to one of my characters called the Historian. You're going to get to know who he is. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a little something at the end of this, so hopefully you'll see it all the way to the end. It's a book that basically shows quite a few things that he's written over history. He talks about the roller box. I can't really divulge too much. You're going to get to know who the character is and what he represents. He not only talks about the roller box and how his relationship is with them, but he also talks a lot about history in itself, certain mysteries and certain things that aren't divulged to us, but certain leaps of faith that we have to trust. Also certain things such as, well, what are really the answers to a lot of things that we don't know? Leaps of faith, as I said earlier. One choice between, well, let's just put it down, between creation and evolution. Between what we think we know, what we don't know, what could be. That's one of his books. We will be dabbling into some of that, but most of the stuff that we're going to see next episode is going to be about color theory. One character that we have, her name is called Color Doctrina. You'll see who she is, and she's going to pretty much show you what color theory is about. Color theory is temperamental. Color Doctrina is also the same way, but it will give you an illustration on how color theory is temperamental. It's not as simple as you might think. Case in point. Here's just a preview, an idea. Most, if not majority of you or all of you, can tell me what the three primary colors are. Blue, yellow, and red. Now, why are they called primary colors? Well, it's kind of like in math. You have a prime number. You can't divide within itself. That's the lowest it will go. And that's the same thing with primary colors. Again, this is just a preview to what we're going to be coming into. But red, blue, and yellow, you cannot mix. In fact, if you can find a way to mix yellow, blue, or red, you're going to be a millionaire overnight. It's the basic color. The secondary color, which is green, orange, and purple, is exactly what it means. Secondary. Two colors to make one color. That is the root of color theory. Basic. That's it. But it derives into so many different things. Colors will actually change. It's temperamental. When you think you understand it, it's not what you think it is. When you're trying to pursue a certain color, you're not going to get it. Color theory is what music theory is to the musician. Tone, pitch, tonality, understanding that, trying to match certain tones, trying to make those pitches and sounds and getting them to pretty much blend together. So you don't have it too sharp, too flat. And that's what color theory is. What I'm going to show you, we're going to go through step by step. Another part of color theory is thinking you see things that are white when actually they're not. Seriously. That's the number one mistake, and using black. Black, obviously, or white are not colors. Well, obviously, because I've been working with it for a long time. But they're not colors. They're shades and tints. I could go on for a while on that, but this is just a preview of what you're going to be running into and how we're going to be able to work with that. The other thing that I'm going to show you is we're going to be using an example with Bob Ross. Now, I can tell you, some of my colleagues that are rather uppity, because I was one of them. I kick myself in the rear every time I'm thinking about this. But anyway, when you start getting into the more prestigious parts of the arts and you find yourself being in the more prestigious areas, you tend to get yourself rather haughty. And I found myself that way. Bob Ross is an individual who talks to people who just want to paint. And hey, if it's landscapes, then do it. And I'm going to get into that about how I appreciate the way he teaches. So if you're a big Bob Ross fan, or you're somebody who really likes following Bob Ross, I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to knock him. Love the guy. He's great. Because he takes everything basic. The only thing that I would say is he has a habit, or he has a way of rushing paintings. In other words, doing them in a half hour. Why? Sometimes it takes years. It took me one painting to do. It took me 20 years to finally finish it. I'll show that one to you in the next episode. But yeah, I'd put it down, I'd peck at it a little while and leave it alone. It took 6 years to do the Mona Lisa. And even when Leonardo passed away, he wasn't happy with it. He carried it with him. That's how it ended up in France. Another story altogether. Anyhow, what the point I'm trying to make is that color theory is very, very temperamental, and trying to grasp all this is going to be hard. So one of the things that I am going to be able to show you is how to take color theory and apply it to exercises like you're doing Bob Ross. Okay, case in point, and I'll make this really quick. Every artist has a weakness, and I don't care what kind of master you are. If you look closely at Rembrandt's paintings, you will notice some of his hands aren't really wonderfully rendered, and they look like he's pretty much tried to rush through them. Vermeer, same thing. You'll see some areas that aren't really truly developed. Now, the question could be, is it because he was rushing that one piece of work? Were the artists really just trying to get by and not draw your attention to that area? Or did they really not know how to handle that certain part? It doesn't matter. The thing is that we look at what masters do and we focus on everything that they created, which is great, and that's fine. But we tend to forget that they're flawed too, and some of their works aren't all that great. So I'm saying that to add to what Bob Ross is. Bob Ross, when he paints, he works with raw color. What I'm going to show you is how to neutralize those colors to make them look more realistic, just so that you have a broader expansion and understanding of what color theory is about. Not to knock anybody, but to enhance and to help you be able to go even further with your color. And you'll find that your works will probably pop more. They'll be more subdued in certain areas. And you'll create depth, trying to push things back and neutralizing colors rather than just adding blacks or whites or just pushing those colors back. You can neutralize those, which gives it more dimension. And that's what color theory is all about, and that's what we're going to go over. Okay. Well, that's a preview into what we're doing in our next season. And for now, we're going to be closing out this season here. We came a long way. And as I said earlier, there's a lot in what we've done and a lot in this area from pencils, and now we're going to move into color. You probably saw that near the end of this season, we started showing more color, and you were probably wondering, how are we going to reach those colors? Well, now you're going to see how we're going to get to those colors now. I think it's time to say goodbye. So let's close this out. One more stop. And we'll see ya next season. Come on. Oh, paper's still here. Remember? Falling apart at the seams. This is where we truly began. Remember? Well, this is where we say goodbye. And this is where we say farewell for this season. Remember, we'll be back in November. I think probably around November, if not maybe a little earlier, but the latest will be November. And that's where we're going to start color theory. So, the final thoughts. Get in there, work hard, take what you've learned from what we learned about pencils and drawing and paper and perspective, composition, shape. Look at things around differently. Hopefully you've learned something, a little nugget of stuff. Look at other tutorials, find other artists. Really, there'll be others that you will find out. Hopefully this season I've been able to help you understand and to be able to look at things and even your tools differently and to look at things differently so that you really have an understanding of what art's all about and the drawing and everything about it. It's not just the 2B pencil. It's an array of pencils. I know we didn't go over charcoal, we didn't go over Conte crayon. That'll come a little later and we'll probably explore those areas sometime later. Well, as I always close out, God bless you guys. And thank you for the 115. And as a matter of fact, we had 2 more people, so welcome aboard. It's 117 now that we have out here that are joined up, which is great. It'll only get better from here. I'm learning, remember, I'm an out-of-datasaurus, meaning that I did things in the old school way, and maybe just one day I'll show you a history of how we used to do things as compared to before we had the iPad and the computer and all of that. God bless you guys. And may the Lord Jesus Christ always be with you. Seriously. I just don't say that to say it. I really mean that. It comes from caring. It comes from understanding and really being somebody where I want to be more than just a teacher as your friend. Take care. We will see you in about 3 months or so. And keep practicing. And we'll be working more on color theory.
He walks alone, an archivist of realms, where seeds are sown. Each whisper in the wind holds secrets untold in the tapestry of time. Mysteries unfold. His eyes like mirrors reflecting the past. the years. Witness to glory how empires rise and disappear. Yet some truths he guards, wrapped in silent grace. Faith's fragile thread ties each forgotten place. Every answer's birds a choice, a pathway in the night. The historian knows, but he's bound by the vow to leave some questions unanswered somehow. For in trusting the journey, our spirits take flight in shadow.
¡Pantalabamba!